Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. There are hundreds of varieties of just one kind of vegetable, but which is the best? Today we're going to start some vegetable trials. Also, we're going to plant corn. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Dr. Natalie Baumgartner. Dr. Natalie is the Tennessee Extension Master Gardener State Coordinator, and Mr. D will be joining us later. All right? So, Dr. Natalie, we're out in the Family Plot garden. It's a windy day, but beautiful day though.
It just makes you want to plant beans. I mean, I'm excited about gardening on a beautiful day like this.
All right, well look, before we plant those beans, let's talk a little bit about vegetable trials though. Why do we trial anyway?
Right, so one of the most common questions that agents get at the county office is, what do I grow?
All right.
There are literally hundreds of choices, and we try to do our best to trial in Knoxville, but let's face it, Tennessee's a lot different from one side to the other.
It is.
We have a Tennessee home garden variety trial, which lets gardeners across the state pick crops that they're interested in and pair two similar but different cultivars and tell us which ones they like best, which ones germinated best, which ones tasted best, which ones yielded the best. And so they pick out from a catalog simple comparisons, and then we send them seeds and a straightforward evaluation to send it in the fall, and we compile all the data and come out with variety trial reports so that home gardeners know what to plant in their own backyards.
So how's it been working so far?
It's been working so far very well. Last year was our pilot year. We tested it out on a few master gardeners, and this year we're expanding. We have more than twice as many participants as last year.
Good deal.
Beans, corn, cucumbers, squash, watermelon.
Watermelon, got to have that. All right, well, you want us to get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right.
So what we have today
Okay.
are some green beans.
All right.
So this is the green bush bean trial, and the two cultivars that we're going to be comparing are Jade 2 and Crockett. And we've sent enough seeds in each one of the trials to do about 10 row feet, which is quite perfect because you have about a 10-foot wide plot
I think
here.
we got that.
It's almost like you guys planned for this. So, and you've prepared, this is the first year that this garden has been grown, right?
This is correct. We've had raised beds before, but this is our first in-ground.
Yeah, in-ground, so you guys are expanding the family plot.
Right, we are.
And so there's been some compost mix in, and you can kind of see that amending and getting our garden soil with a good tilth, right, or workability is a process. So, so we've worked it up, and we have a couple of rows here, and we are just, we're just gonna plant green beans.
All right, I'll follow your lead.
All right.
Okay.
So, here, you don't need the evaluation yet.
I don't need it just yet, right?
And with each kit comes a couple of tags, which hopefully will be waterproof. But there's a nice little map also in here that you can plan out where you put things.
Okay.
So we made a couple of small rows here. They're about 2.5 or 3 feet apart, which should be enough to allow you room to pick, but not so much room that you have plenty of space for weeds to grow.
Yeah, because those weeds will grow in there. I'm sure they will.
You'll have some good opportunities throughout the rest of the garden season to talk about weed management here in your open plots. And so the first row that I have here is the Crockett. So I'm going to pull out some Crockett green beans. So these are untreated seeds, and we'll generally want to plant our green beans after the frost-free date, and your guys in Memphis is around the 15th of April, so you know we're in pretty good time. And when we plant green beans, we want them to be about 3 or 4 inches apart when they come up. So I'm going to plant these beans about every 2 or 3 inches apart. If you get a little carried away and get them a little close, which I tend to do occasionally, then you can always come back and do a little bit of extra thinning. So I'm just gonna carefully place out these rows. Now we made some really shallow rows here you can sort of follow. You can make those with a hoe, you can make them with a rake. my grandpa always said, nothing grows in a straight row. So I like to make mine just a little bit crooked, which is easy.
Which is easy to do, right?
Yeah. So my seeds came out quite well, right at the end of the row, and so we're just going to come back in and cover these up. We generally say that we want to cover with about 2 to 3 times the diameter of the seed.
Okay.
So with a bean, if we can get those 1.5 or 2 inches in the ground, that can be pretty good depth. Our goal is to get lots of good ground contact, because we want these little seeds to be able to real rapidly take up water and start all those enzymes cranking that will allow them to germinate.
That's right.
And so you can see this is actually a good soil moisture. It's dry enough that we can work, but as I turn it over, you can see that there's a good amount of moisture in there. So
it's pretty pronounced. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got our first row of beans planted.
How often should we water those, though?
Well, we say that vegetables like about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water a week. And many times during the springtime, we'll be able to get enough through rainfall. But as you get into the summer, it might be good to irrigate a little bit of supplemental moisture. Most of the time, these green beans will yield in 55 to 60 days. You might be able to beat that days to harvest a little bit here in the warm growing conditions of Memphis. And these are both going to be a nice dark green beans. You might have to do some good sauteed stuff on the
that sounds
family
good.
Plot later in the later in the summer. So we'll just go ahead and do the same thing on this next row. So within our trial, we have folks all the way from Johnson City and Kingsport in East Tennessee, clear to you guys here in Memphis. And as you well know, those are quite a bit difference in growing conditions.
That's one end of the state to the next, man.
Yeah, difference in elevation, difference in temperature, difference in moisture, all kinds of opportunities. And then as people fill in their favorite crops and what did well, we'll be able to kind of tailor our recommendations and say, these are some of the best crops for West Tennessee, or these did really well in East Tennessee. You know, some of the challenges with green beans are that when you get into the really hot parts of summer, sometimes they'll drop some of those blooms if it's so hot during the day. So that's the benefit of having gardeners all over the state. We get feedback on how well the yield stayed throughout the whole growing season. We had a couple of beans left over.
Do we need to be on the lookout for any diseases or pests?
Some of the pests that I see most commonly in green beans are going to be Mexican bean beetles. You might get Mr. D on a little bit of that later in the summer.
Okay.
And lots of times we'll see those initially as larvae. They'll be a yellow fuzzy larva, and they will defoliate the leaves. So they're primarily leaf feeders. There are some bacterial diseases that can impact beans, and there are some mosaic diseases, but many of the cultivars that we used in the trial have some good resistance to some of those mosaic viruses. So we'll hope that due to our selection and those comparisons, you shouldn't have too much of a problem with diseases. Insects and critters might be some of
another story.
Some of your other challenges throughout the season.
Well, we can't wait to see what's going to come up from the ground and get back with you later.
Yes.
So see the end product.
Yeah. So you can evaluate and tell us what did well right here on the Family Plot. But I'm excited that you guys are participating in the trial this year.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Yeah. Always good.
There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Mr. D, we're in the family plot garden. I'm excited because we're going to talk about planting corn, one of my favorite vegetables.
Right, good old sweet corn.
Good old sweet corn.
Can't beat it.
So how do we need to get started?
Well, the first thing we did, you know, back in the fall, we prepared the ground initially, and we pulled a soil test. We did it the right way. We pulled a soil test, and the instructions or results recommend 15 pounds of 15, 15, 15 per 1,000 square feet. So we don't have 1,000 square feet, but we do have 100 square feet. So we'll knock a 0 off, and it's 1.5 pounds of 15, 15, 15, and that's 24 ounces, I think, and that's what I've got here.
That's easy math.
Easy way to figure it out. So I've got it weighed out, and I'm supposed to broadcast this. And so we're going to broadcast it, and then we're going to rake it in a little bit, and then we will come back and side dress the corn when it's 8 to 10 inches tall with some more nitrogen. So let's go ahead and I'm going to try to do a broadcast here. I don't want to run out like when I'm halfway through here. That won't work very good. I'm going to try to put out about half of it first go around, and then the other half the second go around.
Oh yeah. Look at that.
There you are.
You've done that before.
Perfect. How about that?
How about that? That worked out just right.
Okay, now let's rake it in a little bit. I'll let you hold that.
I'll hold that for you.
And I'm just going to rake it in a little bit. And this is, you don't really have to do this because these fertilizers are water soluble, but I just kind of like I don't particularly want the seed to come in direct contact with the fertilizer. And when we make our rows, we will, we hopefully won't be able to actually see any fertilizer. Okay, we got that in pretty good shape.
That's good.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to, I'm going to put double rows. We're going to plant 2 rows 10 to 12 inches apart, 10 feet long. Then we're going to skip over about 36 to 40 inches, 2 more rows, 10 to 12 inches apart. And so we'll have, and the reason we're having the side-by-side rows is corn's wind pollinated, and it makes pollination process better. And over here, we're going to do a different style. We're going to plant a 4-by-4 foot section, and we'll have corn in a checkerboard pattern at 12 inches apart, about 12 inches apart. And that's good if you have a smaller area, raised beds, things like that. That will work. You can still reach to get in, and you also have the good cross-pollination will take place. So let me start with my first row here. Now my dad would be upset because unlike Natalie, he liked straight rows, and we had stakes that we would put on both ends and stretch a string. And those are out there on the family farm somewhere, but I guess I should have brought them today.
We're going to see how straight you are then.
Let's see here.
Not bad, not bad.
Think it'll work? I need a hoe. I'm used to using a hoe for this, but we'll make do with this rake. Okay, that is 1 row, and this is exactly, I'm going to move this out of the way a little bit for now. This is precisely 12 inches. Okay, about 36 inches. Now this design is strictly from the University of Tennessee publication, Growing Sweet Corn in Home Gardens. So if anybody wants to take a look at it, they can find it online.
How does the soil look to you?
Looks good.
It's good.
Looks good. You can tell it was a little wet when we worked it last fall because we do have a few clods in there, but it will be pretty good. Okay, we're ready to plant this.
What are we planting?
We're planting sweet corn, peaches and cream.
Peaches and cream, love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Very, very good sweet corn. Yep. 10 to 12 inches apart. I'd say let's go 12 inches apart.
12 inches?
That'll make the ears bigger.
All right. That was about right, huh?
Mm-hmm. Now, let me cover it up. Okay, that's got that in pretty good shape. Okay, let's try the checkerboard style now.
I'm looking forward to this, Mr. D. I really want to see this.
Okay, this is a little different, and it's really good if you want to if you have a raised bed or if you have a very small area, and you pretty much ensure that you get good cross-pollination. Now we want to make sure we stay at least 12 inches away from that other row there. Okay. Can we, a marker there we can put down? That's about right. Okay, so I'm just going to make the holes first. I'm going to come about 12 inches from that row and 12 inches from outside, and I'm just going to dig a little bitty hole. Not very big at all. Okay. Coming 12 inches. Same thing. It's a lot better to do this than to plant one row of corn 100 feet long, because the wind will just blow the pollen away. Unless the wind is just out of the right direction, it doesn't get pollinated. This way, no matter which direction the wind's blowing, you get pollination occurs. So we only need 12 seed. There's 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Do we need to plant them close together? What about thinning? I mean, something like that, or what are your thoughts?
This is fresh corn seed, so I'm assuming that the germination is really good. Okay. You're going to know very quickly whether or not the corn is up, and if one of these doesn't come up, you just need to go out there real quickly and replant. Drop another seed there. You know, I mean, they'll start spiking, in just a week or so. Okay. So to cover that up, I'm not going to use clods to cover it. All right. I'm going to try to just...
You're going to hand cover?
I'm going to kind of hand cover it. Okay. In just a few days, we'll see what we've got.
See what we got. I can't wait to see. Thanks,
I'm glad you've got this good fence around here, because it'll keep the raccoons out. Maybe.
I was just thinking about raccoons earlier. I sure thought about that.
Yep.
Appreciate that, Mr. Dito.
Okay, good deal.
We'll see what happens.
See what happens.
The daffodils and the tulips have all finished blooming, but you can see there are seed heads left. Well, if you want it to be more attractive while you're waiting for the foliage to die down to enrich the bulbs for the next year's bloom, you can cut them. And so I'm going to cut down these. You notice you don't want them to go to seed. So you want to cut the seed heads off, because you want the energy to go down into the bulb to renew the bulb and not to go to seed. And we'll just keep going and get rid of all of these seed heads. But it is important to leave the foliage to die down naturally, so it is able to put energy back into the bulb so that they can bloom again. Now all the seed heads are gone, so the plants can concentrate their energy on enriching the bulbs so that it'll bloom next year. And doesn't it look a lot nicer than seeing all those seed heads?
All right, this is our Q&A session. Y'all ready? All right, got some good questions here. All right, here's our first via email. Is copper oxychloride a safe organic pesticide? And this is from Manuel via YouTube. So, Mr. D is looking at me.
I think we need to turn this over to a good doctor here.
So there are lots of copper products that are some are organically certified, but they are, an elemental product. So many people use them as an organic fungicide, bactericide. So there can be many good uses. And I guess what my response would be about the safe. I mean, yes, if you use it in accordance with the label. But one thing to keep in mind is that it is a metal, right? It's an elemental product. And so over time, repeated heavy applications of copper can build up. So even though it's an organic product, what I would say is use it as we suggest for conventional products, and rotate. Don't just use one product.
Well, that's a good answer. And don't make assumptions about it. Like I assumed a few years ago that a couple of teaspoons or tablespoons per gallon of water of copper sulfate would take care of my bacterial spot on my tomatoes, which it did. But it also defoliated my tomato plant. It took all the leaves off, and so it killed the bacteria. But so a little bit will go a long way. you know, in a lot of cases with copper products.
And there are lots of different formulations, so you really do have to follow the label on that. You know, some are copper soaps, some are, you know, more, soaps. You know, your.
Some of the old copper Coside is an example of a bactericide we've used for years and years that has copper in it. Plants need a little bit of copper, but too much copper in the soil can be
can be a problem.
Could
be a problem.
Yeah, so phytotoxicity certainly possible with organic products.
It could be a problem, and if you use too much, as Mr. D said, you will knock it out, but you also knock out the plant. Right. So there you have it, Manuel. Be careful, read, and follow the label, please. All right, here's our next viewer email. What are suckers and water sprouts on a tree? How do you identify them? And this is Gregory via YouTube. So actually, good question.
Yeah.
What are suckers and water sprouts, Doc?
So the most important thing is, where are they coming from?
Right. Makes a difference.
Yeah. So the definition would be that suckers are actually coming from the root system. And most of the time in our apple trees, we may actually have a grafted tree. And so controlling the suckers, they're coming from a plant that doesn't have the desirable fruit that we want. So we'll trim off those root suckers. And then water sprouts are coming from higher in the tree. And lots of times we can see them by a more vertical.
And every one of them wants to be the strong central leader. And so they're fighting for the sunlight and all that. And if it's growing up straight up, you're not going to have any fruit buds on that. It's strictly vegetative. And some pears are you know, they really have a lot of water sprouts.
And also too, some of those trees, like your big oak trees, if they're pruned improperly, they will put out some sort of water sprouts, which are weakly attached, you know, shoots. So you have to be careful with that as well.
Less productive, more prone to breakage, and
strong winds or anything like that, they're coming down for sure. All right, so placement, Gregory, placement makes the difference there. Thank you for that question. All right, here's our next via email. Oh, Doc, you're going to like this one. Are ornamental peppers edible? And this is from Miss Carol. So are they edible?
Sure. But you kind of need to know what you're dealing with. Many of our ornamental peppers are hot peppers. And it's not that they're inedible, it's that they may not have the flavor quality that we would expect from some of our traditional hot peppers. So they're edible, they may not be great. There are also more cultivars now that are really selected to kind of have the best of both worlds. So there's some sweet peppers that have both ornamental and edible. So sure, you can eat them.
Sure, you can eat them. But they may be hot.
Maybe hot, or bland, or just, you know, not a great flavor profile.
All right. Mr. D, anything to add to that?
No, we got it covered.
All right. So be careful, Miss Carol, all right? Maybe hot, or bland. All right? All right, so be careful with that. Here's our next via email. What's the best way to get rid of fire ants in a raised bed? Will they harm the plants? And this is from Amy. So, Mr. D, fire ants, she's calling them fire ants in a raised bed, though. How do we get rid of those?
I mean, the Texas two-step method. What are you growing in the raised bed? Ornamentals or vegetables? Because if it's vegetables, you just got to worry them to death. You know, fire ants don't like to be bothered. You'll notice the reason they were in that raised bed is because you weren't bothering them with a tiller or a lawnmower, or if you just worry them to death, they'll leave. They will move, and you can worry them by just disturbing them every time you walk by there, but you better get on out of there pretty quick. Or you know, pour water on them. You know, pour hot water on them. You can do stuff like that to get them to move. And if it's in an ornamental situation, you can go with the Texas I guess it's a Tennessee two-step where you apply some bait, put bait out there, and then about 7 to 10 days later you go in there with a contact killer and put it out there. But you know, be sure you don't have any edible peppers in there.
Knowing what you're growing is important in selecting your control material.
So Doc, the second part of the question, though, will they harm the plants? So let's say they're vegetables. I mean, will they harm the vegetables?
Probably beneficial.
Aeration of the soil. I mean, I think it would mostly be the concern of you as you're working in your garden at any given moment. You may.
You learn to work your garden very fast if you so you move quickly.
You just got to move quick.
Yeah. More about the people than the plants in that situation, I would say.
Right.
All right, so ornamentals, the Tennessee two-step, you said Tennessee?
I guess it's Tennessee two-step now. It's Texas two-step.
Yeah.
I think A&M came out with that.
Yeah,
so
the Texas two-step.
The Texas two-step.
All right. Yeah. I guess in Tennessee, we just two-step out of there, right?
We're one step behind, I guess, on that deal.
All right, so there you have it, Amy. You be careful out there with those fire ants, all right? So, Doc, Mr. D, we're out of time. That was fun.
All right.
Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. If you want more information about getting the ground ready and planting vegetable seeds, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have that and a whole bunch more. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.